Hey, what's up guys? Not sure if decay or just bad at the game here, and today I would like to talk about incentive in Overwatch. More specifically, incentive for playing in a competitive environment. While I was away on vacation, I did take some time to read the comments under my most recent videos, including the one talking about the perception of skill. I was honestly quite surprised to find so overwhelmingly many people voice their desire for a second part of their video, where I take a look at hero balance in regards to our competitive ladder. Now, what some of you didn't know was that this video was extremely time intensive in its production. Despite popular belief, videos like that take a long time to script and rework until they reach a state that I deem good enough to be made into a video. In the same vein, many scripts never turn out to be actual projects to begin with. And for the subject matter in question, I have incorporated other people's opinions, so talking to these people and writing the script according to their opinions also takes a fair bit of time. All of this is just saying that yes, I am going to work on that video, but for the time being I decide to tackle a less time intensive project. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. When talking about incentive, it is important to know who you're referring to. Obviously, there are enough players out there who are fine with the way Overwatch works right now. Maybe you just play every once in a while, and with the pacing in the game when it comes to leveling up, you feel rewarded on a regular basis. However, if we're talking about competitive, we're talking about the most dedicated part of the community, those who want this game to be their main time sink. Now, there are two sides to that coin. The kinds of people who like the game and are really into the competitive experience, so much in fact that they feel like rewarding players unnecessarily could even ruin it. And the kinds of players who also sink a lot of time into competitive but don't feel rewarded enough for their efforts. Now there's one thing I would like to agree with right from the get-go. It's something that the devs said, something a lot of people said in the comments, and something that I dare to question in my most recent upload. The fact that playing competitively just for playing competitive's sake should be enough motivation for someone who is truly invested. Emphasis on should. I mean, by now all of us probably heard of the devs taking a more aggressive approach with their new reporting and penalty system. They have also clearly voiced who they actually want to have participating on ladder and who they'd rather have stay away from it. So the punishment system is something that is constantly being worked on. How do we filter out people who are toxic, people who throw, people who keep disconnecting? But there's very little thought put into how do we keep people invested in competitive. That's probably because it shouldn't be a question that's on the table in the first place. As we already established, if you are really into competitive, then that should be motivation enough. So how come that despite some people saying that rewarding players unnecessarily could ruin ranked, we still have a decent amount of voices speak in favor of more incentives? It's because the competitive experience in Overwatch is far from optimal, and I really need you to hear me out here. I'm gonna compare Overwatch to Dirty Bomb and Rainbow Six Siege. Both games I have played at quite an average level when it comes to competitive, so I hope that my experience reflects that of an average player who would decide to pick these games up right now. But just to make sure I put a disclaimer here, I am not invested enough in either of these games to make definitive statements on whether or not the ranked experience is good according to the currently active community. This is something coming from my own experience playing these games and nothing else. So let's take Rainbow Six Siege as an example first. Whenever I played ranked, I felt responsible for each and everything that happened. If I died, there was usually something I could have done better. If I lost, then I did not feel bullshitted. I just felt like I could have made a bigger impact if only I played better. That sounds quite contrary to Overwatch, doesn't it? A game so team-based that even a single player deciding to throw makes it so incredibly difficult to win that it often feels impossible. But in Siege, it literally felt like every last bit of improvement that I provided translated directly into the outcome of my matches. Now let's take a look at Dirty Bomb. This too is a team-based game where winning all on your own is not exactly the easiest task. I chose it because I feel it sits directly in the middle between Overwatch and Siege, meaning your individual performance can have a massive impact on the outcome of a match, but at the end of the day, if your team really wants to lose, then you're not gonna be able to win. It doesn't feel anywhere near as devastating though if only one player on your team is not doing so hot. Forget winning. In Overwatch, even whether or not I have a good experience is dependent on the random dudes the matchmaker gave me. That's just how much you rely on your team not fucking around. But in Dirty Bomb, I might not be able to win all on my own, but God knows I can still have a good time playing, assuming I provide this skill. And that, I feel, is the difference. The extent to which you have to rely on your team. In Siege, from an average player's perspective, I always felt like yeah, having a good team makes it easier, but I never felt like I could not win with just my own skill. That could obviously change in the higher ranks, but again, we're talking about an average player's perspective here. In Dirty Bomb, unlike Siege, I might not be able to win every single game on my own, but my contribution still matters. I don't feel useless. If I'm good enough, I'm still gonna have a good time even when I lose. And in Overwatch, if one guy decides to fuck your team over by trolling, then God knows you're not only not going to win that match, but you're also about to have a really shit 10 to 25 minutes of game time ahead of you. So why does all this random shit matter? It's to illustrate differences in core game design of different shooters. From games where nothing matters but your own skill, games where team play is important, all the way to games where team play is a necessity. If your gameplay experience is not satisfying enough all on its own, then you need to give players more incentive to play so they don't feel like they wasted their time. So how do these games tackle the problem of incentive? Well, in Siege, I don't really see a lot when it comes to rewards in the first place. The only thing I could remember I ever got was a weapon attachment that represented the rating I got in the previous season. And I would argue that they don't need more than that, because the competitive experience is so incredibly satisfying that here, yes, I dare say it, playing for playing's sake is motivation enough. Dirty Bomb is a bit of a problem child. They haven't quite figured out what exactly a decent business model should incorporate. Their rank game mode is still an alpha, and their player base is rather small. Lacking players means that matching them by skill becomes increasingly difficult. While their competitive experience is reasonably satisfying, they are aware that players suffer long queue times due to the lack of participation in that small player base. So they give you a lot of incentive to play with a variety of different cosmetic rewards you can acquire. They added a lot of incentive because they are aware that their rank game mode still needs more work to be inherently satisfying to play. And this is what I think we're missing here. Yes, when Overwatch is at its best, then playing competitive is really fucking satisfying and fun. And I mean really fun, but that just doesn't happen regularly. Instead of playing the game as it was intended with switching heroes according to the problems you have in front of you, players decide to just sit on their favorite hero even when it obviously is not working out. And that's just one of the problems that simply cannot be fixed. You can't ban players that just refuse to swap. And it's gonna take a lot of time to weed out enough toxic people, throwers, trolls, and smurfs to turn this game mode around to an extent where at least half of your games are fun again. This is why I believe Overwatch needs more incentive. It's either your game mode is so fucking good that playing for playing's sake is actually enough incentive, or you compensate for the faults that your game mode has by giving players more incentive. At the end of the day, I very often felt like I wasted my time when I spent my evening playing ranked. About 70% of my matches were decided by whether or not I had a guy on my team that insisted on being a spoiled princess. Winning games because the enemies had a troll is not fun either. And yeah, again, when Overwatch is at its best, it is an amazing experience. But the frequency in which you have to endure bullshit that should not be there really ruins the experience. I do have to give credit where credit is due though, because these 30% of matches that end up being really fun and satisfying have me coming back over and over again. And maybe, just maybe, this is what it boils down to. Because yes, Overwatch can be kinda addicting, and the fact that so many players are willing to throw themselves into ranked, well, knowing that whether or not they have a good experience is a coin flip is a testament to that. So it could be that the devs don't feel the need to give players more incentive because they are aware of that very fact. Yes, negative experiences engrave themselves into our brains more than positive ones do. And sure, people do like to complain, and okay, maybe the ranked experience is not perfect, and having this written down in front of me makes me realize why this video is called Perception of Incentive and not Lack of Incentive. I might have an opinion, but that's not necessarily reflecting what the majority of the player base feels like. So do let me know down in the comment section below whether or not you feel rewarded enough to keep playing Overwatch competitively for a long time. Because the question is not whether or not we did come back or whether or not we are coming back right now, but if we are still going to come back in the future if nothing changes. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys, but this is me done for the day, so I talk about the perception of incentive in Overwatch. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time.